Hi guys, tonight we're exploring a subtle but absolutely catastrophic scenario. What if gravity, that fundamental force that holds everything together, started getting weaker year by year? So gradually that we wouldn't even notice at first, but eventually reshaping the entire universe around us. If you enjoy these slow-burn apocalyptic sleep stories that explore how tiny changes can reshape everything, hit that like button and subscribe for more. And drop a comment letting me know what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. I love discovering which corner of the world you're checking in from. Alright, let's begin. Picture yourself standing in your backyard on an ordinary Tuesday morning, watching your coffee mug slip from your hands and fall to the ground. The ceramic shatters against the concrete patio in exactly the way you would expect, fragments scattering in predictable arcs. But what you cannot see, what no human instrument has yet detected, is that this simple act of gravity pulling your mug earthward just occurred with 99.98% of the force it would have exerted exactly 1 year ago. The fundamental constant that has governed every falling apple, every ocean tide, and every planetary orbit for the past 13.8 billion years has begun an almost imperceptible decline that will reshape the very fabric of our universe. The gravitational constant, known to physicists as Big G, currently measures 6.674 times 10 to the negative 11th cubic meters per kilogram per second squared. This seemingly abstract number determines how strongly every particle of matter in the universe attracts every other particle. When Newton first described gravity's inverse square law in 1687, and when Einstein refined our understanding with general relativity in 1915, both assumed this force remained perfectly constant across all of space and time. Yet in our imagined scenario, this bedrock assumption crumbles as gravity weakens by just 0.2% annually. Initially, such a subtle change would escape detection entirely. The most sensitive gravitational wave detectors on Earth, including the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, with its 4-kilometer-long arms, measure distortions in space-time smaller than 1/10,000th the width of a proton. Even these extraordinary instruments would require several months to register the cumulative effect of weakening gravity. The first hints would emerge not from laboratories, but from astronomical observations, as scientists noticed that planetary orbits were expanding ever so slightly beyond their predicted positions. Mars, currently orbiting the Sun at an average distance of 228 million kilometers, would begin drifting outward at a rate of roughly 450,000 kilometers per year as the Sun's gravitational grip weakened. This might seem insignificant given the vast scale of the solar system, but consider that this represents Mars receding from the Sun at a rate of 51 kilometers per hour, constantly and relentlessly. Within a decade, the red planet would have moved nearly 4.5 million kilometers farther from our star, enough to noticeably affect its orbital period and surface temperature. Earth itself would experience this same outward drift, moving approximately 200,000 kilometers farther from the Sun each year as gravity's hold weakened. Our planet currently maintains its life-sustaining temperature partly because it orbits at precisely the right distance within what astronomers call the habitable zone. This Goldilocks region, where liquid water can exist on a planet's surface, extends from roughly 149 million kilometers to 150 million kilometers, 154 million kilometers from the Sun. As Earth's orbit expanded, it would gradually approach and then exceed the outer boundary of this zone. The first measurable effects on our daily lives would manifest in ways so subtle that most people would attribute them to normal variation. Athletes would notice their vertical jump heights increasing by microscopic amounts, gaining perhaps a millimeter of extra height after the first year. The world record for the men's high jump, currently 2 meters and 45 centimeters, set by Javier Sotomayor in 1993, might be broken not through improved training techniques, but due to the imperceptibly weakened pull of gravity. Long jumpers would find their distances extending by centimeters, while pole vaulters would discover they could clear bars that previously seemed impossible. Ocean tides, driven by the gravitational interaction between Earth, Moon, and Sun, would begin exhibiting irregular patterns that would puzzle coastal engineers and maritime navigators. The Moon's gravitational influence on Earth's oceans would weaken in lockstep with all other gravitational forces, causing high tides to recede by several centimeters each year. Coastal cities like Venice, already struggling with rising sea levels and frequent flooding, would paradoxically find their aqua-alta events becoming less severe as tidal ranges diminished. The famous St. Mark's Square, which floods approximately 60 times per year when tides exceed 110 centimeters above mean sea level, might experience fewer inundations as peak tidal heights decreased. Meanwhile, Earth's relationship with its moon would undergo profound changes that would become increasingly apparent as years passed. Our natural satellite, currently receding from Earth at a rate of 3.8 centimeters per year due to tidal friction, would begin accelerating its outward journey as gravity's hold loosened. The Moon's current distance of 384,400 kilometers from Earth represents the result of billions of years of gravitational evolution, but weakening gravity would dramatically alter this ancient dance. After 5 years of declining gravitational strength, the Moon would have receded an additional 19,000 kilometers beyond its normal orbital evolution. This increased distance would cause the length of our days to change as Earth's rotation slowed more gradually than usual. Currently, Earth's rotation is slowing at a rate that lengthens our day by roughly 1.7 milliseconds per century due to tidal friction with the Moon. With a more distant Moon exerting weaker tidal forces, this rotational slowing would decrease, potentially adding extra seconds to our day over decades rather than millennia. The implications for Earth's climate system would prove far more serious than slightly longer days or altered tides. As our planet's orbit expanded and moved farther from the Sun, the amount of solar energy reaching Earth's surface would decrease according to the inverse square law. Currently, Earth receives approximately 1,341 watts of solar energy per square meter at the top of its atmosphere. After 10 years of orbital expansion due to weakening gravity, this solar constant would drop to roughly 1,335 watts per square meter, a seemingly small decrease that would trigger cascading effects throughout the climate system. This reduction in solar energy would begin counteracting global warming trends caused by greenhouse gas emissions. Paradoxically, the weakening of gravity might temporarily mask the effects of climate change, leading to cooler global temperatures despite rising carbon dioxide levels. However, this cooling would prove uneven and unpredictable, potentially disrupting weather patterns more severely than gradual warming. Agricultural regions dependent on specific temperature ranges and growing seasons would face unprecedented challenges as traditional climate models became unreliable. The massive ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland would respond to weakening gravity in counterintuitive ways. While reduced gravitational pull would theoretically make it easier for ice to carve from glaciers and ice shelves, the concurrent cooling from reduced solar energy might actually slow ice melt rates. The West Antarctic ice sheet, containing enough water to raise global sea levels by approximately 3.3 meters if it completely melted, might achieve a temporary equilibrium between reduced gravitational binding and decreased thermal melting. Perhaps nowhere would the effects of weakening gravity prove more catastrophic than in Earth's atmosphere itself. Our planet's atmosphere, with a total mass of approximately 5.15 times 10 to the 18th power kilograms, is held in place entirely by gravitational attraction. As this force weakened, atmospheric pressure at sea level would begin declining from its current standard value of 101,125 pascals, or 14.7 pounds per square inch. The relationship between gravitational strength and atmospheric pressure follows a direct correlation. A 10% reduction in gravity would ultimately result in a 10% reduction in atmospheric pressure, assuming the atmosphere's total mass remained constant. However, the reality would prove more complex, as weakening gravity would allow atmospheric molecules to escape Earth's gravitational well more easily, leading to actual atmospheric loss rather than simple pressure reduction. Commercial aviation would face extraordinary challenges as weakening gravity fundamentally altered flight dynamics. Aircraft currently rely on precise calculations of air density, which directly relates to atmospheric pressure, to determine takeoff speeds, fuel consumption, and operational altitudes. As atmospheric pressure decreased due to weakening gravity, pilots would need to achieve higher ground speeds for takeoff, as the reduced air density would provide less lift over their wings. A typical Boeing 747, weighing approximately 412,000 kilograms when fully loaded, currently requires a takeoff speed of approximately 290 kilometers per hour at sea level under standard atmospheric conditions. As gravity weakened and atmospheric pressure decreased, this same aircraft would need increasingly higher speeds to achieve sufficient lift for takeoff. After several years of declining gravity, certain airports at higher elevations might become entirely unusable for heavy commercial aircraft, as the combination of reduced gravity and thinner atmosphere would make safe takeoffs impossible. The International Space Station, orbiting Earth at an average altitude of 408 kilometers and traveling at approximately 27,600 kilometers per hour, would experience dramatic changes in its orbital mechanics. Currently, the station loses altitude at a rate of approximately 2 kilometers per month due to atmospheric drag, and must be periodically boosted to maintain its orbit. As gravity weakened and the atmosphere thinned, atmospheric drag on the station would decrease, potentially allowing it to maintain altitude with fewer boost maneuvers. However, this apparent benefit would be overshadowed by more serious consequences. The station's orbital velocity, carefully calculated to balance gravitational attraction with centrifugal force, would no longer match the reduced gravitational field. The ISS would begin spiraling outward into a higher orbit, requiring significant fuel expenditure to correct its trajectory, or risk losing the precise positioning necessary for supply missions and crew transfers. Satellite communications networks spanning the globe would face similar disruptions. The approximately 2,000 active satellites currently orbiting Earth exist in carefully calculated positions where their orbital velocities precisely balance gravitational attraction. Geostationary satellites, positioned 35,786 kilometers above the equator and orbiting at exactly the same rate as Earth's rotation, would find their positions no longer synchronized as weakening gravity altered their orbital dynamics. These communication satellites, worth billions of dollars and essential for global internet, television, and telephone services, would require constant orbital adjustments to maintain their coverage areas. The fuel reserves designed to last 15 to 20 years under normal conditions would be exhausted much more quickly, leading to premature satellite failures and potential communication blackouts across entire continents. The global positioning system, consisting of 31 satellites in medium Earth orbit at altitudes of approximately 20,180 kilometers, would face similar challenges. GPS accuracy depends on precise timing and positioning of satellites relative to Earth's surface. As weakening gravity caused these satellites to drift into higher orbits, the system's accuracy would degrade, potentially making GPS navigation unreliable for aviation, maritime navigation, and countless civilian applications. Meanwhile, the weakening of gravity would have profound effects on human physiology that would become increasingly apparent over time. The human cardiovascular system has evolved over millions of years to function under Earth's current gravitational field strength. Our hearts pump approximately 5 litres of blood per minute against gravity's pull, maintaining blood pressure that ensures adequate circulation to the brain and extremities. As gravity weakened, blood pressure regulation would become disrupted. People might experience episodes of orthostatic hypertension, feeling dizzy or faint when standing up quickly, as their cardiovascular system struggled to adapt to the reduced gravitational force. Athletes and individuals with physically demanding jobs would notice changes in their endurance and strength as their bodies adapted to the altered gravitational environment. Bone density, which currently decreases at a rate of approximately 1 to 2% per year in space due to microgravity, would begin declining on Earth as gravity weakened. This process, known as bone demineralization, occurs because bones adapt to the mechanical stress placed upon them. Reduced gravitational stress would signal the body to reduce bone mass, potentially leading to increased fracture risk and early onset of osteoporosis-like conditions across the global population. The effects on human pregnancy and fetal development would raise serious concerns for future generations. The developing human embryo and fetus rely on gravity's influence for proper organ formation and skeletal development. Reduced gravitational force during critical developmental phases might lead to birth defects, altered growth patterns, or other physiological abnormalities that could affect children born years into this gravitational decline. Entire ecosystems would face unprecedented stress as the fundamental force governing everything from seed dispersal to predator-prey relationships gradually weakened. Birds, which rely on precise wing loading calculations and energy expenditure for flight, would find their flight characteristics altered. Species that have evolved specific wing shapes and flight patterns optimized for Earth's current gravitational field might struggle to adapt quickly enough to survive. Migratory birds traveling thousands of kilometers during seasonal migrations would face particular challenges. The Arctic tern, which travels approximately 70,000 kilometers annually from Arctic to Antarctic and back, relies on precisely calculated energy reserves and flight dynamics. Changes in gravitational force would alter the bird's flight efficiency, potentially making some traditional migration routes energetically impossible to complete. Plant life would experience profound changes as gravity influences everything from root growth direction to the transport of nutrients and water through stems and leaves. Trees, some of which grow to heights exceeding 100 meters, currently exist at the limits of what Earth's gravity allows. The tallest trees, such as coastal redwoods reaching heights of 115 meters, are constrained by their ability to transport water from roots to leaves against gravitational force. As gravity weakened, trees might initially grow taller than ever before, as the gravitational constraint on water transport relaxed. However, these same trees would also become less mechanically stable as their root systems and trunk structures evolved under stronger gravitational conditions. Forests worldwide might face widespread tree mortality as ancient giants, no longer adequately anchored or structurally sound under weakened gravity, toppled during storms or simply under their own weight. The oceanic food chain would face disruption as marine life adapted to altered buoyancy relationships. Fish and marine mammals have evolved swim bladders and body compositions precisely tuned to Earth's current gravitational field. Changes in effective weight and buoyancy would force rapid evolutionary adaptations or lead to mass extinctions among species unable to adjust quickly enough. Coral reefs, already under severe stress from ocean acidification and warming temperatures, would face additional challenges as changing gravitational forces affected the delicate balance of carbonate chemistry and organism settlement patterns. The Great Barrier Reef, stretching over 2,300 kilometres along Australia's coast and supporting over 65,000 species, might face accelerated degradation as fundamental physical forces governing reef ecosystem dynamics shifted beyond organisms' adaptive capacity. Economic systems worldwide would struggle to cope with the cascading effects of weakening gravity. Insurance companies would face unprecedented claims as infrastructure designed for current gravitational conditions failed under altered stress patterns. Buildings, bridges, and other structures engineered with specific safety factors based on gravitational loading would require extensive retrofitting or face potential collapse. The construction industry would need to completely revise building codes and engineering standards. Skyscrapers like the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, standing 828 meters tall and designed to withstand specific wind loads and gravitational stresses, would require structural modifications to remain safe under changing gravitational conditions. The building's foundation, designed to support a gravitational load of approximately 500,000 tons, would theoretically need to bear less weight as gravity weakened, but the dynamic effects of changing forces might introduce new structural vulnerabilities. Transportation infrastructure would face enormous costs as roads, bridges and railways required modifications to account for altered vehicle dynamics and structural loads. The interstate highway system in the United States, representing over $4.1 trillion in infrastructure investment, would need systematic updates as weakening gravity changed vehicle braking distances, cornering forces, and crash dynamics. Agricultural productivity would suffer as farming techniques optimized for current gravitational conditions became ineffective. Irrigation systems relying on gravitational flow would need to be redesigned, while harvesting equipment calibrated for specific crop weights and handling characteristics would require modifications. Global food security could be threatened as agricultural yields declined, and distribution systems struggled to adapt. The aerospace industry would face perhaps the greatest challenges and opportunities as weakening gravity fundamentally altered the economics of space exploration and satellite deployment. Rockets currently must achieve escape velocity of approximately 11.2 kilometers per second to break free of Earth's gravitational well. As gravity weakened, this escape velocity would decrease proportionally, making space launches significantly cheaper and more accessible. A 10% reduction in gravitational strength would reduce escape velocity to approximately 10.6 kilometers per second, translating to substantial fuel savings and increased payload capacity for space missions. The cost of launching satellites, currently ranging from $2,000 to $20,000 per kilogram, depending on the launch vehicle and destination orbit, could decrease dramatically as reduced gravity made space more accessible. This accessibility might accelerate space exploration and colonization efforts, potentially offering humanity alternative habitats as Earth's changing gravitational environment made long-term survival uncertain. Mars missions, currently requiring enormous fuel expenditures and complex trajectory calculations, would become more feasible as reduced Earth gravity made launches easier and more cost-effective. However, the same weakening gravity that made leaving Earth easier would also make returning more difficult, as spacecraft would need to carry additional fuel to achieve the higher velocities necessary to descend through Earth's reduced gravitational fields safely. Landing systems designed for current gravitational conditions would require extensive modifications to ensure safe touchdowns for returning astronauts and cargo. Scientific research institutions worldwide would mobilize massive resources to understand the mechanism behind gravity's decline and search for potential solutions or adaptations. The European Organisation for Nuclear Research, operating the Large Hadron Collider with its 27-kilometre circumference, would redirect experiments toward understanding fundamental forces and their apparent variability. Particle physicists would search for evidence of new physics beyond the standard model that could explain how a supposedly fundamental constant could change over time. Gravitational wave observatories would play crucial roles in monitoring the changing strength of gravitational interactions across the universe. The Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, with facilities in Louisiana and Washington state, would detect subtle changes in the propagation of gravitational waves that could provide insights into the nature of gravity's weakening. International collaborations would emerge as scientists worldwide shared data and theories about this unprecedented phenomenon. The implications would extend beyond Earth as weakening gravity affected the entire solar system. Jupiter, with its mass of approximately 1.9 times 10 to the 27th power kilograms, currently serves as a gravitational shield protecting inner planets from many asteroids and comets. As gravitational forces weakened throughout the solar system, Jupiter's ability to capture or deflect potentially hazardous objects would diminish, increasing the risk of asteroid impacts on Earth and other inner planets. The asteroid belt, containing hundreds of thousands of objects ranging from small rocks to dwarf planets, would become less gravitationally bound as the Sun's gravitational influence weakened. Some asteroids might escape their current orbits entirely, potentially creating new collision hazards throughout the solar system. The main asteroid belt, stretching from approximately 329 million to 478 million kilometers from the Sunday, would gradually expand and disperse as objects gained enough energy to escape their gravitational bonds. Binary star systems throughout our galaxy would face similar disruptions as weakening gravity altered the delicate balance that keeps stellar pairs orbiting around their common center of mass. Stars that have maintained stable orbital relationships for millions or billions of years might begin spiraling apart or, conversely, collapsing together as their gravitational dynamics shifted beyond stable configurations. The Milky Way galaxy itself, containing an estimated 100 billion to 400 billion stars, would experience structural changes as the gravitational forces binding stellar populations weakened. Spiral arms, maintained by density waves propagating through gravitationally interacting stellar populations, might begin dispersing as the gravitational cohesion holding galactic structure together gradually diminished. Dark matter, comprising approximately 27% of the universe's total mass energy and interacting primarily through gravitational forces, would play a crucial role in determining the ultimate fate of cosmic structures under weakening gravity. Current theoretical models suggest that dark matter halos surrounding galaxies provide the gravitational framework that maintains galactic structure and enables continued star formation. As gravity weakened, these dark matter halos would become less effective at retaining normal matter, potentially leading to reduced star formation rates throughout the universe. The cosmic web of dark matter filaments connecting galaxy clusters across billions of light years would gradually lose structural integrity, fundamentally altering the large-scale organization of the universe. Religious and philosophical communities would grapple with the implications of a universe where fundamental constants prove changeable rather than eternal. The concept of natural laws as immutable principles governing reality would require re-examination, leading to profound theological and philosophical discussions about the nature of existence and humanity's place in a cosmos where even the most basic forces prove transient. Educational systems worldwide would need rapid curriculum overhauls as physics textbooks became outdated and students required new frameworks for understanding physical reality. The teaching of Newtonian mechanics and Einstein's general relativity would need supplements addressing variable gravitational constants and their implications for understanding natural phenomena. As years passed and gravity's decline became more pronounced, international cooperation would become essential for species survival. Nations would need to coordinate responses to shared challenges such as atmospheric loss, orbital mechanics disruption, and ecosystem collapse. The United Nations would likely establish specialized agencies dedicated to managing humanity's adaptation to changing gravitational conditions and coordinating global research efforts. Emergency response systems would require complete redesigns as traditional assumptions about falling objects, structural collapse patterns, and human mobility became obsolete. Firefighters climbing ladders would need retraining as their weight and center of gravity shifted. Medical emergency procedures would require updates as human physiology adapted to reduced gravitational stress. The ultimate fate of life on Earth under continuously weakening gravity would depend on the rate and extent of the decline. If gravity weakened slowly over thousands of years, evolutionary adaptation might allow some species to survive and thrive under new conditions. However, rapid changes over decades or centuries would likely exceed most organisms' adaptive capacity, leading to mass extinctions rivaling or surpassing the great extinction events of Earth's geological history. Human civilization would face a stark choice between adapting to an increasingly alien Earth or seeking survival among the stars. The irony would not be lost on future historians that the same weakening gravity threatening life on Earth might also provide the key to humanity's expansion throughout the solar system and beyond, as reduced gravitational barriers made space exploration more accessible than ever before. In this scenario of gradually weakening gravity, humanity would confront the ultimate test of ingenuity, cooperation, and adaptability. The fundamental force that shaped the formation of planets, the evolution of life, and the development of civilization would reveal itself as less permanent than once believed, challenging every assumption about the stability and predictability of the natural world. Whether viewed as catastrophe or opportunity, the weakening of gravity would represent nothing less than a transformation of reality itself, forcing a complete reimagining of what it means to exist in a universe where even the most basic rules prove changeable. As we contemplate such a scenario from our current perspective, where gravity remains reassuringly constant and predictable, we gain appreciation for the delicate balance of forces that makes our existence possible. The thought experiment reveals how dependent we are on the stability of natural laws we rarely consider, and how quickly the familiar world we know could transform into something utterly alien through changes in a single fundamental constant. In imagining gravity's slow retreat, we discover not just the fragility of our current existence, but also the remarkable potential for adaptation and survival that defines life itself in an ever-changing universe.